Hi, my name is Ikena, your friendly storyteller, coming to you today with another story from the storyteller student. This particular story actually is originated from the southeastern part of Nigeria. It's an Igbo story, and it is one of those which I would like to share with you today, and I hope you enjoy it. Once upon a time, in the land of Amazi, there was a great hunter called Iroegbu. Iroegbu was known across the land as one of the greatest hunters to ever have lived. It was said about him that it took two men to be able to draw his bow, and actually four grown men to be able to string the bow in the first place. Iroegbu was known far across the entire land as a handsome, well-built hunter. He never entered the forests for a hunt and returned empty-handed. In fact, the whole village knew that once Iroegbu goes into the forest to hunt, there is big game coming out with him. That was how good he was. Iroegbu was known so well around the land, but there was only one thing. Iroegbu was not married. He was not interested in any of the ladies who were around, flocking around him, because as you can imagine, for such a famous, well-built, doing well, great hunter, he was loved by many. But he refused the advances of all these ladies. There was one particular day as he got up to go out on his hunt as usual. His mother called him and said, "My son, Iroegbu, I am getting old, my son, and I do not have any grandchildren. Every day and night I sit crying to the gods to give me grandchildren. But my son, how can they give me grandchildren if you, my only son, have refused to get married?" Iroegbu got angry. Mama, is that why you're calling me right now? You know I want to go out to go and hunt. Why are you talking about grandchildren? I told you this is not important now. I have better things to do. He said, "But my son, can you imagine? I, I, I am going, don't you want me to have grandchildren before I die? My son, did you see Nkiru, the son of Aro, who came here the other day? Is there a fairer maiden in the whole land than Nkiru, my son?" "Mother, do you know I am the greatest hunter this whole land has seen?" "Yes, I know, my son," she replied. "Do you realize that I am the most handsome man the village has seen?" "Yes, I know, my son," she replied. And then he turned one more time to her and said, "Mother, do you realize that the lands around us recognize me as the greatest?" "I know that, my son. How do you then expect me to marry the person you call the fairest maiden in our village? Don't you think I deserve the fairest maiden of all time?" "But my son, what are you talking about?" she wept. "Which fairest maiden of all time?" He shook his head. "Mother, you don't understand." With that, he picked up his bow and stormed off into the forest. As she was there begging, he refused to listen. Iroegbu got into the forest. As he came out, it seemed as if immediately he came to the normal forest where he comes hunting, he saw a full herd of deer. He went thanking the gods for granting him very quick hunt today. He looks at them and picks one well-built deer, big, and he could say, "Yes, that's game." With that, Iroegbu crouched and started inching closer to the deer. With the turned, looked up, looked around, he hid, and went again a bit closer, until he came close enough that he could say, yes, I can see these animals. Then he drew his bow, looking then at that particular one, looked up, prayed the gods that his bow and his arrow might fly true. He releases the arrow. The arrow flies through the whoosh, and as if the deer sneezed. I mean, you can imagine, as if the deer sneezed, it jumped at the last minute, and the arrow that was headed for its heart missed and grazed the shoulder. Grazed the shoulder in such a way that the deer fell whimpering. It could not run anymore. But of course, all the others scattered in different directions. Iroegbu, he cursed the gods because this was one of the only times he could remember that he, the great Iroegbu hunter, missed his target. But still, he walked closer to the deer, brought out his hunting knife to cut off, to finish the job so that he can at least take it home. When he heard a voice, "Don't kill me, dear hunter, and I will grant you anything you wish for." He looked around. He was the only one in the forest. Looked at the animal at his feet. "What did you say?" I'm sure by now he was asking himself, is everything okay? Am I all right? Am I hearing voices? And then he clearly heard the deer speaking to it as he was looking into the jet black eyes of this deer. The deer said, "Iroegbu, I beg you, do not kill me, and I'll grant you whatever you wish for." He thought to himself, well, I can get deers all day long if I can even release this one and go kill another one. So he says, okay, even though he was a bit concerned, but he says, okay, I'll let you go. "I have one wish." The deer said, "Yes, what is your wish?" Iroegbu turned and said, well, my wish is that I will find and marry the fairest maiden in the whole world, the most beautiful woman eyes have ever seen. The deer said, "Let me go and I will tell you where you can find her." So with that, he told, okay, you can go. He even took some herbs from his bag, put on the shoulder, told the deer, "If you betray me, I will hunt you down. If that's the last thing I need, I will do." The deer turned and said, well, the answer to your wish, your prayer, is Princess Nena. Princess Nena, you can find her if you cross the evil forest. You will find that she's the most beautiful woman the whole world has ever seen. He let her go. And he went back home. For the first time, Iroegbu comes home without a catch. His mother was shocked and asked him, "Iroegbu, my son, what happened? You came home without a catch." And he said, "Yes, mother, I found something even much better than wild game." She says, "Okay." So he takes the time to explain to her about what he saw, what he heard, and told her that he is going to find this Princess Nena and make her his wife. His mother begged and said, "My son, no man has ever gone into the evil forest and come back alive. How can you even be thinking about going there?" He looked at her and went, "Mother, once more I'm telling you, I'm the great hunter. I am the greatest hunter and warrior this land has ever known. Do you think I am afraid of the evil forest?" Ha! mother could not believe her ears. She tried to persuade him. He stormed off and went into his room. The next morning, even before she rose up, he had already picked up his hunting things, took his hunting bag, picked up his bow and arrows, and then took his spear, his war spear, and went off into the forest. As Iroegbu entered the forest was dark. There were sounds all around that even him, a hunter, was not used to. He could hear in the distance the cry that sounded like a bush baby, cackling and crying in the distance. Every single sound he heard just sent shivers down his spine. And he was standing there wondering. But one thing drove him on. The imagination, the thought in his mind of Princess Nena and his wife, who will be his wife. So he continued his journey. He would look and step gingerly around skeletons of those who either have been banished into the evil forest or those who attempted to cross it and did not return alive. As he was still walking, all of a sudden, he heard a scream, a loud scream. Iroegbu stopped, looked around. By now, all the hairs on the back of his head were standing, even as his skills as the hunter told him there is danger. He heard a voice that simply said, "Iroegbu, son of Obi, how dare you step into my domain? Who do you think you are?" Iroegbu turned. All he saw was a shadowy figure standing in front of him, shimmering in the small light that there was. And he looks at that figure and he says, "Stand aside. I am going through to find Nena, for she's my wife." The figure laughed. "Ha ha 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 ha. Iroegbu, I warn you, leave this forest now, or I will end you right here." Iroegbu turned. He got adrenaline surged through him. He picked up his bow and arrow, drew it. The arrow flew through, but he was surprised to see the arrow just pass through the shadowy figure and drop behind it. And the thing laughed again. "Ha ha 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 ha. Do you think you, a mere mortal, can hurt me, the Abara of the evil forest?" With that, it picked up what looked like a ball of fire and threw it at Iroegbu. As the ball of fire was flying towards him, it ducked at the last minute and the thing flew beside him. By now, he was scared, but he still had courage. So he picked up his spear. By now, he remembered that this spear was given to him specifically by the chief priest of one of their conquered villages. He picked up the spear, it took the spear, threw it at the figure. And this time, the whole figure burst into flames when the spear struck it. And as it was bursting into flames, the whole forest shook. And he saw trees, everything shaking, and sounds all around as animals, everything went helter-skelter. But at least the figure was killed. Iroegbu turned, emboldened by his prowess. He now turned and said, "Yes, of truth, I have proven that I am the great son." So he picks up his bow, he picks up his spear and continues his journey. As he walks deeper and deeper into the forest, the darkness in the forest slowly starts to fade, and he walks into a bit of a clearing and looks in the distance, and he saw a beautiful palace. But then between him and the beautiful palace was a river that was red as if with blood. Iroegbu turned. By now he said, yes, I have successfully crossed the evil forest, that which no man has ever done. He looked at the river, quickly jumped into the river without even thinking, because Iroegbu was a phenomenal swimmer, and he starts to swim across this river. He starts to swim across the river. A normal person would have been scared at swimming in blood, but Iroegbu was by now flowing with courage. But as he was swimming, at a certain point, as he got about halfway in through the river, he felt something pulling him down. And as he was swimming, he was struggling as the thing was pulling him back. But he looked around, he could see nothing. But when he looked at his foot, he saw that there was something that looked like a rope tied to his right ankle, and it was pulling him down. Now he could even struggle no more as the thing pulled him down into the water with it. He was gasping for air and wondering, what do I do? What is going on? Again, courage flows through him, and he picks up his hunting knife, dives into the water, cuts off the rope that was holding him down. And as he cuts off the rope, he quickly gets back out and swims swiftly to shore, where he was stunned to see the most beautiful lady his eyes have ever seen. She had chocolate brown skin. Her eyes were golden brown. You could actually see the eyes shining as if sparkling with light. She had luxurious black hair that flowed down to the back, and she spoke in a sing-song voice. Welcome, Iroegbu. I have been expecting you. My name is Princess Nena. Even he was tongue-tied. He could not speak. All he could do was nod his head. With that, she took him into her palace, settled him on the chair, gave him something to eat. And as he was feasting, she started asking him, so what is your quest in my palace? He looks at her and he says, I have come for your hand in marriage. She looks at him. Iroegbu, are you sure that is what you want? He looks at her and says, I am the most handsome. I am the greatest hunter the village has ever seen. Yes, I am sure that I am qualified to take the hand of the fairest maiden in marriage. She looks at him again and says, are you sure that this is what you want? By now, he could not understand what was going on. He was like, yes, of course I am sure. She nods her head. Said, then we must get married immediately. She says, yeah, but we need to, it's me getting married. This deserves a big ceremony. She says, yes, you can have a big ceremony, but let's finish with the wedding, and then we can throw the biggest party you can imagine. With that, he agrees, and together they walked into a temple and stood in front of the shrine, and one of the priests, one of her high priests that was there, wedded them. Immediately after they were married, she turns to him and says, finally, we are married. And the best part is, you are with me here forever. Iroegbu shakes his head and says, no, I'm going back to my village. My mother is waiting me. She's expecting for my return. She says, well, I'm sorry, Iroegbu. It's not possible. You see, once you swim across the river of the gods, you can never return. Ah, what do you mean? No, I am your husband. I tell you what happens. She laughed, ha 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 ha. And as she was now laughing, he saw that all of a sudden her face started to change. Her smooth chocolate brown skin started becoming wrinkly and gray and dark. Her hair that was flowing all the way down to her back started shrinking and becoming shriveled. Even her teeth that were sparkling white started becoming colored and disfigured. Her voice turned into a croaky voice, and even the golden brown eyes turned beady black. He was stunned. He could not understand what was going on. And then she looked at him and spoke in a croaky voice. Iroegbu, I am the antelope, the deer that you saw, the deer that you shot. I have arranged that you come here because indeed you want a wife that is out of this world. Fortunately, I am now your wife forever. With that, Iroegbu looked, but there was no more turning back. He was stuck with that which was opposite all he had ever wanted. And that brings me to the end of my story today. You see, the same Igbo land where this story comes from, they have a proverb that says, the fly that will not listen, the fly that will not heed warnings, follows the coffin into the grave.